Now, the Presidential Climate Commission on Tuesday handed the Just Transition Framework to President Cyril Ramaphosa, paving the way for South Africa to move away from coal. The adoption of the Just Transition Framework will unlock the $8.5 billion investment pledged in an agreement between South Africa, the UK, US, Germany, France, and the European Union. So when we take a look at that particular pledge, it was made during last year's COP26 by the rich countries to help South Africa transition away from coal. So reports show that South Africa is the world's 13th biggest source of greenhouse gases, and the country will need billions of dollars over the next 30 years to fund the closing of coal-fired plants and develop green alternatives. Globally, nations need to halve greenhouse gas emissions in the next decade if they were to limit warming to the 1.5 degree C coal. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Makoma Lekalakala. Let me try again. Makoma Lekalakala, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. Of course, the director and coordinator at Earthlife Africa. Thanks for being our guest, Makoma.
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers. My last name, say it slowly, Lekalakala. There you got it right.
Okay, Lekalakala, got it. It was spelt wrong on the autocue, and that's why I was being thrown off there. It's Lekalakala, not Lekalala. That's how it's written on the autocue. Thank you for the correction. Let's get into it, though. What is Earthlife's view on the handling over the framework by the Presidential Climate Commission?
Thank you very much. I think we all are aware of the climate disruption that we're facing, and the floods in KZN and the droughts in the Northwest has actually shown us that we are vulnerable. This is very positive, and I think we applaud that, particularly that the Presidential Climate Commission has done excellent work in ensuring that ordinary people and people in hotspots are part of shaping this framework so to guide the just transition in South Africa away from coal, away from fossil fuels, and also for the resilience of people and the environment to the climate impacts.
The President has said that this framework will enable South Africa to harness the benefits of the Just Energy Transition Partnership that we concluded with governments of, as I mentioned in the introduction, the US, the UK, Germany, France, and the EU last year. But in practical terms, what does it mean for South Africa?
I think one of the things that as environmental justice activists were saying is that funding sends a very strong and important message of acknowledgement of the northern countries of their climate debt. We know that the disruption that we are facing now, the climate disruption we are facing now, it's not of our making. It's particularly what the northern countries have contributed. So we'd expect that we are of the view that they are acknowledging that they are responsible for the kind of climate chaos that we find ourselves in. But also it shows that their commitment to support South Africa just transition away from coal, but also affirms that as South Africa, we have a potential to transform our economy to a zero carbon and climate through a just transition for communities and affected workers.
This framework basically calls for the whole of government to adopt a comprehensive plan with a set of activities to achieve a low-carbon economy and society, battery storage, new energy vehicles, green minerals. Where do you think the government should actually start?
I think one thing that is very clear is that we need a review of the integrated resource plan. And this is where we would be able to ensure the integrated resource plan would also be an enabling policy and also enabling environment so that we can be able to have a just energy transition. We also are aware that there's a lot of bottlenecks But then the transition had started and it has got to be accelerated. It would start with the policy reviews and also a much broader enabling environment through policy and legislation so that the just transition can be accelerated and improve the lives of the people, and so that people in Mpumalanga would no longer struggle to breathe.
Yeah, so I want to find out, and I'm sure South Africans also do, I mean, this money that's being committed by the Western countries, I mean, we're talking about $8.5 billion. What is this? Is it a loan? Is it a grant? What do we know in terms of it? Have we accessed this money already? Do we have it? I mean, not much has been divulged on how that money will be distributed, but I suppose we hope for this. Do you know anything about that?
We actually also are asking that question. It has not come out clear. We still need clarity as to whether this is a grant, this is a deal, this is aid. But however, one of the questions that we ask ourselves is, does the deal commit South Africa to new debt? And that would be very worrying, particularly that the climate debt, the loss and damage that we're feeling, we're expecting reparations from countries of the North. And we hope that this money, how it would be managed, it would be transparent. People would be able to know what the money is being used for, how is it used for, particularly for affected communities and workers. One of the things that we've seen from the Presidential Climate Commission, it's transparency, and they're conducting much of their work publicly, which is something that we expect to get from this kind of activities or financing that has been given, or concessional finance that South Africa has been, that politically it has been announced that this will be given to the South African government for enabling or facilitating a smoother, just transition. So there's a lot of questions. Yeah. Transparency is important, but we do have a practical example of an institution which is linked to this funding that you can do things in a transparent way. We don't want to see this money diverted into doing other things. For an example, if the money is there, it should be of benefit to the workers and the communities that are affected.
So it's a bit hard to be talking about this because it's as you say, none of us really know the conditions of the money, if it's going to get us into more debt. It's kind of a pipe dream at the moment, and it still is, even though that money's being pledged. We don't physically have it, and we still don't even know how it's going to work. So we're having this conversation dreaming about the fact that we're going to move away from coal and fix some of our issues. So it's a hard one, it really is. But I mean, with concerns that have been there about the use of coal, does this hopefully give South Africa the green light that it is need to take a stand, to move away from coal? Can we afford this if we don't even really know how we're going to get this money? And then, of course, decommission coal mines. I mean, isn't this too soon to speak about it?
What we get from the Just Transition Framework that has been handed over to the President, it's guided by principles of distributive, restorative, and procedural justice. So that would mean that if that the money comes and we have that enabling environment, workers, communities, and small businesses must be supported in the transition. And that support that comes through in the transition, and what we need from this money, we'd ask ourselves if the deal or whatever comes in, would that be able to provide for the establishment of a fund for workers? Would it be able to support small and medium enterprises, cooperatives, and affected communities? And how much would be allocated for socially owned projects that would improve the lives of the people moving away from people that will be affected, particularly that the coal mines and the coal-fired power stations would be decommissioned. And that's what we also would want to see happening with these funds, because if this is not centralized or is in line with the framework that has been handed to the president, that would not really benefit the people towards a resilience or climate resilient against climate impacts.
Before I let you go, please just, I know that obviously skills is a big thing, and we need to ensure that we have the skills and the development to do this. I mean, the president has spoken about that as well, and I'm not sure that we have those skills at the moment. But I think what's important is to find out from you, I mean, what is your communication like with the Presidential Climate Commission? If we don't know about the funding and all of that stuff, what are the communication like with them? What are they saying? And also communities. I mean, because communities have to buy into all of this.
I think one thing that is very positive, like I said, around the Presidential Climate Commission is that it's very transparent. And in the past months, it has gone to various areas in the country, speaking to ordinary people, speaking to organized labor, civil society organizations, business. Everyone was included in the consultations that took place in various areas in the country, from Lephalale, from the Mpumalanga areas, Secunda, Witbank, Durban, eThekwini, Gqeberha, and Kuruman. And it is through these consultations that people fed back into what the framework should look like. One other thing is that the consultations, the engagements are there ongoing. And also, like I said, that the Presidential Climate Commission meetings, we always join, people join online. They are always transparent, open to the public. So there's that kind of direct engagement with people. Yeah. As long as you follow, there's no bottlenecks to say you can't join a meeting. And this is Makoma, something very positive that is missing.
Who's determining this framework that you talk about? Who's actually involved in this?
The Presidential Climate Commission commissioners, including their constituencies, they have made an input into this framework, but particularly those people that are going to be affected in the hotspot areas have also made a contribution. And I'm proud to say that I have been part of that. I witnessed that people have actually contributed to the framing of this just transition framework.
All right, we got to leave it there, but thanks so much for talking to us on the program. Makoma Lekalakala, who is the director of Earthlife Africa and coordinator, she's discussing the possibility of South Africa moving away from coal to green energy as the government adopts that just transition framework, which is still something that we're talking about. Hasn't unlocked it yet, but with that pledge of $8.5 billion from Western countries during COP26, still not too sure also how that funding is going to work. All right.